Welcome to Cup Chat with Birding with Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service. Today, join Liz and guest Brent Ortega as they discuss the history of the Christmas bird count, what happens during it, and how people can participate.
Well, good morning, everybody. It looks like we are live. So first off, I would like to thank everyone for joining us this morning with Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Cup Chat. So our guest this morning is Brent Ortega. And so Brent Ortega, so his official title, he informed me, is retired. He used to work for a TPWD, or Texas Parks and Wildlife Department. But now he's retired, but he is actually you're still the state editor for the Christmas bird count. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So we are going to talk about Christmas bird count this morning, since that is coming up, is coming around the corner. So I guess we will start real simple, real basic question. For people who have not heard of the Christmas bird count before, what is the Christmas bird count?
It's a standardized early winter bird survey located in the Americas and the American territories. And it's become very popular over the years, and people tend to make it competitive. So you're not only doing an official survey, you're competing against your neighbor, you're competing against within your count itself. People try to have the most birds or the best birds within their own survey, but they also want to top your neighbor. You want to top maybe the state or even nationally.
Yeah, I think it's funny that we as humans always find some way to be competitive. It doesn't matter what it is. We're gonna find some way to make it competitive. I know I am guilty of being a very competitive person. You can talk to my husband about that. It drives him crazy sometimes how competitive I can get. But okay, so Christmas bird count. Obviously, it's December. Was it December 15th through? Is it January 15th?
No, December 14th.
Oh, December 14th
through January 5th.
January 5th. Okay.
Christmas bird count was centered on Christmas initially. It was a one-day event. But through time, due to its popularity and size, you couldn't survey everything on one day. And people wanted to attend more than one count. So eventually they made it where you can attend more than one count by having more days of counts. But it's all centered on December 25th. So they expanded the season to be a little earlier, and it expanded it to be just as much later.
Okay, so why is it centered around Christmas? Is there a reason they decided to do it around Christmas?
Yes. Frank Chapman, who was the editor of the magazine Bird Lore, made a proposal. The proposal was based as a reaction to what was happening in the nation. Back in 1900, think about that, there was concerns about overharvesting. They had an activity known as the Christmas side hunt. Christmas side hunt was you and a bunch of buddies would go out during the day and see who could kill the most and stack it up. Who had the biggest pile of dead animals, birds, mammals, whatever they could kill.
So literally no discretion, just whatever moved. They tried to shoot
there were
at.
no, it's not against them. There was no regulation.
Mm-hmm.
The states, the federal government didn't have regulations that restricted how much you could kill. So they just shot everything for the days and just see how it turns out. So this was a reaction from scientists that were concerned, or maybe declining populations related to some hunting. And so they said, we'll survey birds. But right from day one, they talked about having the most species. So it's not just surveying birds. Their desire was to also make it competitive. So the first count was not done at one location. He posted, just think of the communication back in the day. We used to, within seconds, you can talk to the world. They didn't have that. So he published in this magazine, and only people receiving the magazine probably knew about it. And I'm not sure what their circulation was back in 1899 when it was published. So they got it. 25 counts were started by 27 people. So the counts were scattered across the country, most of them in the northeastern states. The one with the most species, dang it, was out of California.
Really?
You know, there's
Interesting.
local pride running around. Texas was not a participant.
Not at the time. Not at the time. So you'd mentioned it started in the Northeast. Do we know where exactly in the Northeast did it start? Do you know?
Where the count started?
Yeah, like where,
Well,
you know where the first count was?
Well, there's 25 of them.
Okay. Okay. So
There
just,
wasn't one count, and then everybody found out about it. He put it out in the magazine. He wanted everybody to do it. Each count was essentially a one-person walk. There wasn't a lot of transportation in those days, so to go out, walk wherever your favorite place is, count the birds. And the interesting thing, okay, how did they communicate? They communicated with the Postal Service. So their deadline was like soon enough to make the January, February issue of Bird Lore.
so they would have to pretty well get it in the mail right away.
The editor's thought was you drop it in the mail either Christmas afternoon after you were finished, or the next day. And they would get it, and within a week, they'd send it to the editor to be published.
Wow. Yeah,
Today with computers and everything, we give the participants until the end of February to turn in their data.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And the editors have it till April, and they have a deadline. They have to turn in their data at the end of April, their review. Then the Audubon staff gets it, and this year it hasn't been published yet. So somewhere in late November to December, it eventually gets published. So you can see what happened last year.
Gotcha. So as a state editor, what do you do with the data? Obviously you have to run through it, but what are you looking for in the data?
Well, what you're looking for is accuracy in every facet. So the most important data the observer records is not the individual birds. The most important data they record is their effort. How many miles they traveled, how many hours they spent surveying, and how many people in groups were surveying. So this gives an effort of how much effort they use to count the birds. Then in turn, you have the data from the actual numbers of the birds, and you merge that together, and you end up with a product as birds per party hour. Okay. A party being a group of birds working together to survey. So that gives you an effort, then you have a total number, and then you just put it in the database, which is available to everybody. You can go and download all the Christmas bird count data for Uvalde.
Yes. No, I have.
College Station or wherever you're from.
I have used that in the past. It's a lot of data, and your job for the entire state of, because you cover the entire state, correct?
Correct.
You are the only person that is looking through all this data, correct?
Well, it comes in levels. Okay, the first person to look at it is the local compiler. Okay. So this is the person that organizes the local count, and each Christmas bird count is a 15-mile diameter circle. That's the area where the survey is supposed to be done. And I don't know of any count that covers an entire 15-mile diameter circle. It's a pretty large area. And getting access to property is challenging, particularly in a state like Texas where there's not much public land. You hypothetically could go in the middle of Yellowstone National Park and do a Christmas bird count, and you only deal with one landowner,
Mhm.
the National Park Service.
Right.
The Matagorda County Christmas bird count, we deal with about 24 different landowners. So we have to get permission, be on their property, and make sure that we don't abuse the property. We close the gates. We do all these things that are necessary to use somebody else's land. So each count's a little different. It's, whatever they can produce. But anyway, it starts with the compiler. He organizes it. He sends the groups of people out there to survey the different portions of the count. It comes back. He has the data in his hand, or he or she has the data in their hands. They review it, and they have to decide, am I willing to put my reputation on this report and send it to me, to open yourself up to criticism, not only from me, but anybody else looking at the data. So for the rare birds, they have to document it in some fashion. Sometimes it's a verbal description, but that's pretty hard to transfer that from where they are to where I am. But most of the time it's in some form of writing or a photograph. Maybe it's an audio recording, but they have to describe the bird enough for where somebody can recognize what they reported and they believe what they reported.
So for something like a rare bird, would it be very similar to what they have to go through for eBird? A very similar process?
Very similar process. But eBird, you'll have to recognize eBird generally covers a county review.
Mhm.
A Christmas bird count is 15-mile diameter. So that's much smaller than a county. So one of the standards I set for all the counts in the state is the historic presence of that species within their count circle, not within the county, but within their count circle. So that's a much smaller area. So a species, like I was talking to somebody from Amarillo, their survey is down in the canyon. Getting urban birds in the canyon is not that common, but
right. So
sometimes something like a white-winged dove would require documentation, because the first time they had it on the count, it's in recent years, and it was just a late, expansion of the white-wing going to more rural settings. But it seems silly, but never recorded there before, so they had to describe the bird in enough fashion to where we would believe it, and that wasn't difficult. It irritated them.
Right. Yes, because it's one of those where, well, of course, we've all seen white-winged doves. We're very familiar with them, and then when you have to describe in length that you saw a white-winged dove in an area that they generally are not seen, I could see that would be very frustrating. But from your side of things, is you need to make sure that that the data is as accurate as possible, that you're not throwing in birds that was not actually what they were seeing, to try and keep, like I said, the data as accurate as possible for the future, for people that need to use it in the future.
That's true. And also there's another layer of review. The Bird Records Committee for Texas. So if any species reported in the Christmas bird count makes the list for their review, then I just turn it over to them. And it may be sometime in the summer or the fall before I hear results from them. So there's several layers of review. So you have the local compiler, you have the state editor, then you have the overarching Texas Bird Records Committee if it's extremely rare bird.
Gotcha. So like you said, several layers to go through, without a doubt. Okay, so I guess we've been talking about collecting the data and all this stuff, but let's talk about, so if somebody that's never done the Christmas bird count, they decide, I want to do it, I want to participate, what does the day of look like for somebody that's participating in the Christmas bird count?
What, excuse me, would you repeat?
Sorry. So so if somebody is going to participate in Christmas bird count,
Okay.
whatever day their compiler has decided the day is, they go to their meeting location, they meet up with everybody. What does sort of a typical day look like for somebody that's participating in the Christmas bird count? Obviously, the locations will differ from one location to another, but what time does it generally get started? What time does it end? Or what can they sort of expect if they decide to do the Christmas bird count?
It varies. It can run from midnight to midnight. It's a calendar day bird survey. The more competitive people are, the more diverse settings they have, you're going to have some people starting at midnight. Oh,
To get those
in the
owl
Matagorda County count,
species.
for instance, it's been traditional for a decade or more. You go out and flush rails. So they go out at midnight through the wetlands, trying to flush yellow and black rails. It's a way of, you can survey them during that period, and you're not wasting your daylight hours trying to do this important task of documenting you still have yellow or black rails on your count circle, and just maximize the use of the people that are available. So in that situation, it started at midnight, or they may be going after owls. They may be going after a variety of species that can be detected at night. Most counts don't start until about 6:30 though, daylight. And how they form is variable. There are some counts that you have to physically show up. And the compiler says, okay, this is the group of people I have. I'm going to divide you up, and we're going to give you a map with a section to cover. The more complex counts, they're not going to waste their time going to a meeting before daybreak. They already know where they're going, and they have their team. They may have their own little bird count meeting on site. They're going to meet at a gate. Okay, we're going to be surveying this ranch, and they're going to divide up the ranch into parcels, and their team will spread out to survey each parcel of that ranch. And like I mentioned on the Matagorda count, we have like 20-something ranches that we survey. So you have to have teams to divide up and cover the land or the water.
How many people are generally on a team?
It's up to what they have. The Nature Conservancy, which is a large property in Matagorda County, their Mad Island facility, they may have as many as 50 people participating in that section. So, but they have 7,200 acres. So they'll divide up the property into various sections, and some task or they'll form a skirmish line and walk across grasslands, flushing birds and identifying them. Other settings requires maybe just one or two people together doing something a little more discreet, maybe going in a boat to some remote areas, or going through woodlands where you would scare all the birds if you just went in there with 15 or 20 people. So you'd have maybe 2 or 3 sneaking through trying to locate species. It all varies, depends on what's out there and what resources they have. Do they have that many birders? Some counts have as few as 10.
So go ahead. Sorry.
Other counts have unlimited ceiling. The largest counts in the country will have over 200 field observers.
Wow.
And maybe that many feeder watchers. The Canadian counts are well known for that, and in some other states, particularly California, they may have 150 to 200 something field observers. That's kind of hard to keep up with.
Yeah. So obviously it doesn't seem like there's no maximum number of people that you can have, but is there a minimum number of people that a compiler needs to have in order to have a Christmas bird count?
The standards are 10, but those standards have been known to be broken. When you sign up to start a Christmas bird count, you have to tell National Audubon you have at least 10 observers that's going to participate every year. But they don't go and police it. But if you consistently do less than 10, imagine they would talk to you. But I've never known them to cancel a count for lack of birders once this got started and they have some history to them. But there's some remote areas. You take like the Guadalupe Mountains. It's a long distance from populations, and it can be pretty cold in the wintertime. And they have a hard time conducting a survey in the Guadalupe Mountains. So they may end up having less than 10. There was a count out of El Paso in the state park that for a number of years had one person participating. But the rules are you're supposed to have 10. And if Audubon doesn't, stop them when they have less than that, then that's their business.
Gotcha. So can somebody participate in more than one Christmas bird count? So if they have several different options in their area and they're all slightly different, if they're all different days, can one person do multiple Christmas bird counts?
Yes. That's why you had multiple days. Another reason having multiple days is weather situations. There is one person that I know about, there may be a few others I don't know about, did a count on every day. And I know he tries to do this every year. That's quite a feat.
To say the least.
Well, yeah, just physically, you being out doing an intensive bird survey all day long from the 14th of December to the 5th of January. That's quite challenging, as well as the travel distance. I do about a dozen myself, and the counts aren't positioned to where they're all close to each other. So invariably, you go into counts that are 100 miles away or further from where you live. That means you getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning, travel 100, 150 miles, survey birds all day, come back home, and just
do it all over again.
So, but it's quite an event if you go on the coast. The coast of Texas has some of the best counts in the nation. And these compilers have picked days of the week instead of a calendar date. It's the day they're going to do their count every year. So an example may be the first Saturday of the Christmas count season. That's the most popular day to do a count. It's the most competitive for the participants. How can you get 50 birders or 100 birders to help you on a count when on that same day another city, say San Antonio, would be competing with Austin, or Austin competing with Waco. So many of the counts have learned to get better participation. They'll have theirs on a weekday or a weekend, depending on how everything shakes out. But anyway, the coast has most of the counts with the highest number of species. So you can go and, for instance, say Saturday, go to Corpus Christi, the first Saturday of Christmas season. First Sunday to Christmas season, you might want to do Freeport. The first Monday, Matagorda County. First Tuesday, why not Powderhorn Ranch Wildlife Management Area? The first Wednesday, Atwater National Wildlife Refuge, Sea of Prairie Chicken. The first Thursday, Guadalupe River Delta.
That sounds exhausting, just you talking
San
about
Bernard
it.
National Wildlife Refuge. And these people are paying me to advertise.
Shameless plug.
But in truth, all these counts I tell you about have at least 150 species to as many as 248. So they have high diversity. They're some of the top counts in the state as well as the nation. And it's quite a thrill to every day get up and there's an outstanding Christmas bird count to participate in.
So if somebody wants to participate, how do they go about finding, if it's their first one, how do they go about finding maybe what the closest one is, just to sort of get their feet wet?
You can go to the National Audubon Society webpage for Christmas bird counts. Just type in christmasbirdcount.org.
Okay.
And they'll take you to their website. And within their website, they have information as how to find a Christmas bird count near you. It's under the section on participation. You go there, they have a map, and they have all the circles outlined on this map across the Western Hemisphere. And it shows where the counts are. You can click on it, and it'll provide the compiler contact information if they're still accepting new counters. You can determine if they're accepting new counters by the color of the circle they have displayed. It's yellow or green. Red means they're not accepting new people anymore. Being yellow or green doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to fit you in, but they will consider you to participate. And most of the time they have space, but it just depends on the setting. The Christmas bird count is a bird survey, but it's not a bird tour. If somebody's participating in the count expecting somebody take them by the hand and show them every bird, that's generally not how it's done. This is a bird survey where each person has certain responsibilities. And you may be with people that will point out every bird, but that's generally not what they're trying to do. They're trying to find every bird, and everybody focused on finding every bird.
So if you've never done say you're new to birding, you're very passionate about it, but you're looking to become a better birder, help with some citizen science, so being part of the Christmas bird count. I mean, do you have to be a good birder to participate?
No,
or
you
can
don't.
you be okay?
You don't have to be a good birder, but you have
To be an active birder and actually pointing.
I think so. Well, there's two categories you can fit into. One is a field observer, where you either by yourself or you with a group, or you a feeder watcher. Sometimes that's a better situation for people where they can feed birds in their yard and just document what they had during the day. But I encourage people to participate with basic birding tours prior to the Christmas bird count season to develop a little bit of skills, learn what's in their area where they're likely to be in a Christmas bird count, to where they can add value to the team that they'll be participating with. On some counts, it's perfectly fine to be with a group with limited skills, and they'll say, well, okay, you'll be the driver. You're going to be the person that tallies the results. You may have a checklist in your hand, and people call birds out, and you just write them down. They can participate in those fashions and help out with the team. But it really is a bigger benefit if they know what they're looking at.
Gotcha. But something for everybody. Any skill level, you can participate and work on your bird ID skill and just continue at it, and you'll one day you'll be one of the high level skilled people at the Christmas bird count if you practice enough and go to enough. But okay, well, we are right at the 8 o'clock hour. So Brent, I want to thank you so much for coming on to talk to us about the Christmas bird count this morning. I hope everybody goes out and tries to find a local Christmas bird count if there's one in your area. Before we go, one last plug. We have our fall virtual seminar this evening. It is 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. Registration will be open right up until the 6:30 mark this evening. So if you haven't already done so, please go ahead and do that. We're going to be talking about exploring expanding ranges in birds. Registration is $15, and all the proceeds go towards our youth birding program, Rio Diablo Birding Camp. But Brent, again, thank you so much. I wish you happy counting here in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, so everyone, I hope y'all have an absolutely fantastic day, and we will see y'all next week. Bye.